Hi, Recap TV here. Today I will show you an action-adventure film from 1974 titled The Arena. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. When the Romans force two gladiatrices to fight to the death, they form an alliance to overpower their oppressors and reclaim their freedom. A priestess named Boadicea leads a ritual with her tribe. Suddenly, a bunch of Roman soldiers appears and start attacking her people. As the Romans mercilessly eliminate the tribe, Boadicea tries to flee but gets caught. Impressed by her feisty nature and alluring beauty, the captain tells his men to put her in cuffs and have her sold in the market. Elsewhere, a Nubian dancer named Mamawi celebrates with her tribe. Once again, the Romans invade their land, killing everyone except for her. Like Boadicea, she is held captive to be sold. Later on, Boadicea and Mamawi are brought to the city of Brundisium. There, they are put on a stage along with two other captives, Dieter and Livia. As the auctioneer tries to sell them, a flashy man named Priscium arrives. He offers to buy the four women for 40 pieces of Egyptian gold, to which the auctioneer agrees. Immediately, Priscium carries them to his house, where he acquaints the ladies with Cornelia, his procurer. At the point when Priscium leaves, Cornelia asks the people for their names. Dieter and Livia answer without question, but Boadicea remains headstrong and refuses to speak, so Cornelia hits her with her chain belt. Frightened, Boadicea reveals her name. Lastly, Cornelia asks Mamawi for her name, and she proudly replies. After this, Cornelia orders the women to bathe. As they refuse to unclothe, Cornelia calls two men to lend a hand, so they forcefully remove the women's clothes. One tries to take advantage of Dieter, but Cornelia tells him to stop. After this, the men leave, and Cornelia's assistants bathe the women while she tells them that their duties are to serve the arena's patrons. Shortly after, they are brought to the arena, where a duel just took place. There, they are horrified to find a man with a sword pierced through his belly. Boadicea runs to the man while Cornelia tells the others that they'll get used to seeing someone die. As the man dies in Boadicia's arms, a gladiator named Marcus approaches her. Having killed the man, he justifies that one of them had to die because they're gladiators. Enraged, Boadicea reminds him that he's enslaved. After this, Boadicea and Mamawi are brought to an extravagant party facilitated by Timarchus, quite possibly of the most influential man in the city. He advises Mamawi to move for them, so she does so and tempts everybody in the room. Meanwhile, Boadicea serves wine to the guests, but a random man touches her. She hits him with a pitcher, which leads one of the men to desecrate her as punishment. The following day, Priscium and Timarchus announce to the gladiators that they planned a great fight where two men will team up against one enemy. A fierce warrior named Quintus will team up with the last champion, Marcus, to fight Septimus, a man twice their size. As the men gather in the arena, the women clean the benches. Cornelia tells them that the gladiators need women to warm their beds before their fight, so she wants the newcomers to do the job. This seems to interest Mamawi, but Boadicea remains stoic. As the gladiators leave the arena, Boadicea catches Marcus staring at her. Later that evening, Priscium tells the women that the gladiators are fond of fresh blood, which means they've selected Boadicea, Mamawi, and Dieter. Although Boadicea convinces the women to refuse, Priscium threatens to summon Cornelia, which leaves the women with no choice but to follow. Boadicea finds herself in Marcus' chambers, who refuses to have company. He's worried about the fight, knowing that Septimus is unbeatable. However, Boadicea gently touches his arm, encouraging him that he still might win. In the meantime, Mamawi gets tossed into Quintus' room, where he rapidly attempts to have sexual relations with her. Notwithstanding, she compromises him with a messed up jar, so he stops. She yells that the Romans taught him to live like an animal and that he's forgotten about his past. This causes him to walk away in shame. Mamawi then slaps him, and after seeing the look of excitement on his face, she caresses his cheek and kisses him. For the rest of the night, Boadicea and Mamawi make love to their men. On the day of the fight, Marcus and Quintus find that Septimus is untouchable. Meanwhile, Boadicea and Mamawi anxiously watch from the crowd. In the arena, Septimus gains the upper hand and stabs Quintus. Marcus doesn't stand a chance either, and he dies with his comrade. Witnessing Marcus' death, Boadicea weeps by the benches. Later that day, Timarchus goes to a sauna with many influential men. There, they brainstorm on what twist they can add to the next matches. In the kitchen, the women prepare dinner. While everyone works, Cornelia asks the newcomers for their comments about the arena. Boadicea and Mamawi express their disapproval, but Livia is enthralled by the bloodbath. Mamawi, who's been speaking ill of the Romans, somehow triggers Livia, so the woman claims that the match wasn't equal since the first man Septimus killed was merely one of Mamawi's race. This incenses Mamawi, so she snatches a blade to wound Livia. Boadicea stops her, yet Mamawi just hotels to battling her all things considered. The battle dynamically deteriorates, making food fly out of control. Eventually, everyone gets immersed in the mess, and everything falls into chaos. Because of this, Priscium reports to Timarchus that the women are trying to kill each other. Timarchus immediately heads to the scene, where he realizes that it's beyond his control. Suddenly, Septimus approaches him, saying that he's looking for his lover, Lucinia. To trick him into putting an end to the fight, Timarchus tells him that she died in the kitchen. Septimus swiftly springs into action, demanding the women to give him Lucinia. Lucinia then happily leaves from under the table, and Septimus scoops her into his arms and takes her away. Meanwhile, Timarchus' companion realizes that a women-only fight would be interesting, as it would seem like the return of the Amazons. Timarchus gets giddy over the idea that he immediately sends the women to practice with the gladiators the following day. During this, Mamawi gets into another fight with Livia and furiously tackles her to the ground. The two continue until Septimus pulls them apart, berating Mamawi for her behavior. A week after, it's finally time for the women to enter the arena. The onlookers are so eager to see them that they find the men's duel exhausting. Boadicea gets set in opposition to Dater, who can scarcely convey the heaviness of her sword. Throughout the match, Boadicea exerts minimal effort as Dater keeps tumbling to the ground. The crowd gets entertained, and soon after, Boadicea secures her victory when Dater collapses out of exhaustion. After the match, Livia passively compliments Boadicea for her victory. She then wears a galia and asks how she looks, so Boadicea comments that she looks like a Roman. This delights Livia, noting that she should overcome her provincial opponents. After she leaves, Boadicea and Mamawi remark how Livia would do anything to become a Roman, even though she's like them. Boadicea points out that they might die in the next fights, so she insists that they help each other. However, Mamawi asserts that they have to help themselves. The following day, all the gladiators gather in the arena, where Priscium appears with 2 scrolls containing the contenders for the next games. As he announces that another duel for the women will be held the next day, he hands a scroll to Cornelia. Cornelia then reads that Mamawi and Livia will be pitted against each other. That night, Lucinia wakes up from a horrible dream where she's forced to fight in the arena. Septimus reassures her that Livia and Mamawi are scheduled to fight, and she's safe for the time being. Lucinia contends that the ladies could pass on due to these battles, and Septimus answers that it should be the divine being's will. The next day, Livia and Mamawi stroll into the field. Mamawi introduces herself to the crowd, but when it's Livia's turn, she makes it known that she's a daughter of Rome. Hearing that she's a citizen, the spectators pressure Timarchus into replacing her. However, all the other women are working, and the only one available is Lucinia. With no choice, she prepares herself backstage and enters the arena. Septimus is surprised to see her, but he cheers her from the side. As the fight progresses, Mamawi eventually gains momentum and disarms Lucinia. The crowd wants Mamawi to actually kill Lucinia, which she doesn't want to do. Pressured by the spectators, Timarchus forces Mamawi to go for the kill, or he'll have his marchers kill her instead. While Mamawi hesitates, Septimus cries in rage. Mamawi gets grazed by 2 arrows, leaving her no choice but to kill Lucinia. That night, the women gather in the kitchen along with the gladiators. Dater, who's drunk, tells Livia that Lucinia died for her. However, Livia argues that it's the spectators' decision and it was Mamawi who killed her. Mamawi replies that Lucinia was armed, and she also didn't have a choice. One of the warriors lets Mamawi know that she'll before long become accustomed to it and understand that she can carry on with a decent life assuming she satisfies the expert. Angry, Boadicea shouts at the men that they're subjugated by decision. Cornelia suddenly appears, telling Boadicea to shut up or she'll have her whipped. Just then, Priscium walks into the kitchen and announces that another game will be held the next day. This time, the 2 champions, Boadicea and Mamawi, will fight each other. Before Priscium leaves, Boadicea claims her right to select a companion for the night. This surprises him, more so when Boadicea chooses Septimus. As she proceeds to Septimus' chamber, the drunk Dater screams at Cornelia that Timarchus is a swine. Because of this, she gets whipped. Meanwhile, Boadicea finds Septimus mourning over Lucinia's body. She expresses her deepest sympathies, saying that she knew he loved her and their daughter. With this, she proposes for Septimus to help them escape, as Lucinia wouldn't want their daughter to grow up and die in the arena. Boadicea then asks Septimus to meet them at the catacombs that night and that he should bring weapons. Later that night, the women attempt to escape, and they bring Livia with them to ensure that she wouldn't report them. As they reach the catacombs, they find that Septimus isn't there. Boadicea tells the others to wait as they'll get lost in the catacombs without Septimus' help. Somewhere else, Septimus creeps into Timarchus' chambers, where he endeavors to kill him in his rest. In any case, before he can retaliate for Lucinia, Roman warriors stop him. The commotion wakes Timarchus, who cowers in his bed, screaming at the general to crucify Septimus. The next morning, Mamawi and Boadicea are prepped for their battle. Mamawi is determined to win, but Boadicea reminds her that her victory won't free her. However, the woman isn't listening to her anymore, given their failed attempt to escape last night. Elsewhere, the general, Rufinus, gives Septimus the honor of ending his own life. With that, Septimus stabs himself, then he gets crucified. At the arena, Mamawi and Boadicea battle against each other. Mamawi overpowers her opponent, leaving her pinned to the ground, unarmed. Timarchus then forces Mamawi to kill Boadicea, and the crowd also pressures her. To threaten her further, the archers direct their weapons at her, so Mamawi raises her weapon. However, she merely lands it on the ground next to Boadicia's face. Mamawi then screams for freedom against Timarchus' face, which scares him. He then orders his right-hand man to summon the archers, but before he can give the command, 3 arrows land on the man's chest. To Timarchus' horror, the women they purchased have begun a revolt. Armed with bows and arrows, they stand at the benches, ready to fire. Dater then pushes Timarchus into the arena, where he faces Boadicea and Mamawi. He threatens to crucify them, but this doesn't stop the women from killing him. The crowd cheers, then chaos ensues. The women begin firing their arrows, killing some of the Roman soldiers. The gladiators also arrive as they battle against the soldiers in the arena. The spectators also join in on the mess, tossing the elites into the arena, including Priscium. Meanwhile, Cornelia runs to Timarchus' lifeless body, mourning his untimely death. Vengeful, Cornelia grabs a sword and attempts to slay Dater, but Mamawi stabs her in the back. After this, Boadicea, Mamawi, Dieter, and some other gladiators escape the arena. As they make their way out, they find Livia cornered by a bunch of spectators. They attempt to leave the city, but a horde of Roman soldiers block their path, leaving them no choice but to head to the catacombs. As they fight their way through, however, none of the gladiators makes it out alive, and the 3 women, along with another companion, are the only survivors. Meanwhile, Rufinus tells one of the elites that he will only have his men go after the rebels until sundown, as his forces are expected in Rome. He quickly sends his warriors to the mausoleums, carrying a few dogs with them. They get up to speed to the ladies, and another battle follows. Just Boadicea, Mamawi, and Dater get by, while their friend acquires a physical issue that kills her. As they try to flee, they are forced to jump to the other side of the catacombs, which scares Dater. It takes her a while to muster the courage to jump, and when she does, she falls short. Mamawi manages to catch her but struggles to pull her up when the soldiers appear. Just then, one of the soldiers tosses a spear into Dieter's arm, causing her to fall to her death. Enraged, Mamawi throws the spear back at the soldier, killing him. The last 2 women continue to escape while a headstrong elite goes after them. When he catches up, he attacks Boadicea, slicing her in the arm. Mamawi fights him but gets overpowered and cornered to the ground. He almost smashes her face with a rock, but Boadicea pierces a sword through his belly. Finally, Boadicea and Mamawi reach the exit, where they are soon greeted by the fresh breeze of freedom. Thanks for watching video.